Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 263. Now, if you are listening on the day of release, it is the 12th of September. So kids are back to school, the holidays are over, and everyone is settling back down into a routine, hopefully. We are joined by a very special guest who I will introduce you to in a minute. First of all, I'm just going to touch base with Mr. Peter Lant, who is in Bath in Somerset, and he is he's not his usual active self because, well, I'll let him say. How are you doing, Pete?
Well, I'm all right. Apart from having a walking business where I take people out walking and a broken foot. But anyway, it's the way it goes, isn't it? It'll heal. I only did it yesterday. So we're up in Scotland where we met our esteemed guest, walking up and down mountains and all that. And then yesterday I went out for a meeting with a bloke who I'd been messaging on LinkedIn, lives locally. And I was like, let's go and meet and have a chat. Early yesterday morning, stepped off a curb and broke my foot.
Well, it's always one of these stupid little things that, you do all kinds of, you're walking 100 miles at a time and up and down hills and everything. And it's always a little, and maybe we'll talk to our guest about this today, like you can do some amazing things, the kind of things he's done. And then sometimes it'll just be a small little thing you might do around the house and you'll end up hurting yourself some way. Exactly. But yes, anyway.
What it has taught me is, though, over the last 2 years, I've built a huge community and all that. And I don't need to worry about anything because it's all taken care of. Everyone else is taking care of it. If it had been 2 years ago, it would have been the end of it for a month or so. But everyone else has stepped up to take care of it. So that's really good. So thank you to everybody. If any of them are listening ever.
Excellent. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And as Pete just kind of alluded to, when we were up in Scotland recently in Aberdeen, at the start of August, we met this gentleman. And now I told a few members about him because it was almost like a kindred spirit. We sat in a bar and we had a dinner a couple of times and we were talking about training. We were talking about old time lifting, strongman. We were talking about 1980s movies with John Candy and Steve Martin. And we were talking about ales and bass and all different kind of things. So we had a really good couple of nights with this guy. This is Steve Gardner, who is in Barton Under Needwood in Staffordshire. Now, I have no idea where that is, as Pete knows. My geography north of Birmingham is limited. What's Pete going to say?
I was trying to think it might not be far from Lillishall. Is it near Lillishall? Is that way?
Telford is Lillishall, isn't it?
Telford, that was it. Yeah.
Tamworth. How are you doing, Steve? You okay?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. Yeah, Barton Under Needwood is right in the heart of the Midlands in Staffordshire, about 30 minutes north of Birmingham, probably 30 minutes east of Telford. Yeah, right bang in the Midlands. Yeah.
Excellent. And we talked about a lot, and you were actually obviously up at the Dinnie Day in a capacity as what was your official role there? Were you like MC? Were you like?
I'm the for the last 2 or 3 years I've been the announcer for Stevie. I started off helping him out with the event when it first started. I was the head referee for a while, and that kind of thing. But announcing is one of the things that I do. So there came a point where he said, would I do the announcing for him? And yep, so that's what I did. Can I just say to Pete, I think if you went to see the doctor and told him that you had broken your foot in 2 places, he would probably say, well, don't go to those places. That's all I got. That's all I got to add.
That's that thing. You've got tattoos. I see that all over Facebook and stuff when people go like, I'm going to get a tattoo. Does it hurt? And people say, well, it depends on the area. They go, well, I'm from Oldham.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. So when I arrived up in Scotland and went to Banchory to stay in the hotel there, I think it was would it have been the Saturday evening? Stevie came back, and you were there in the bar, and we sat down and started having a chat. And I suppose really, yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your life, your background, your because I know you've had a
Yeah.
fascinating I don't know, 50 odd years in the world of strength and training and things. So maybe start from wherever you want to start, and then we'll kind of dip in and ask questions, because I won't try to even sum up what it is you do or what it is you've done, because you know, like I say, it spans decades and decades and decades. But do you just want to start where you want to start, Steve?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd say I think I've been very lucky to have had the career in strength sports that I've had. Obviously, I've really enjoyed it. Picked up some injuries along the way, as we all do, but I would never have changed a thing of anything that I've done. So I'm approaching 69 years of age, and I don't compete as such now. I'm mainly coach and organise and announce and referee, that kind of thing. But I'm still very much involved in sport. So looking back to being a kid, I started when I was 12, 13, that kind of age at school. I'd gone up to the big school. I wasn't a footballer. They put me in goal, and I was half reasonable sometimes in the goal, but I wasn't a footballer. I didn't have footballing skills. Cricket just somehow didn't grab me. It wasn't a thing I was into. But I discovered athletics. And really, that's where it took off for me, because I was very lucky that a sports teacher took an interest in me, because he realized, in his words, that he thought I had a bit of an ability to throw. So I was doing shot put and discus throwing. And he had been a thrower himself as a sports teacher. He was very active, got me involved with Stoke Athletic Club, and really it went from there. So at the young age of 13, I was actually throwing, being coached at Stoke Athletic Club, and with him at the school where I was from in Stone in Staffordshire, and bought some weights from one of the teachers, a geography teacher, I think he was, a marathon runner, who did some weight training. And I bought my first set of weights, and I think I was 13, and I was doing some light weight training. I still have those discs all these years later, 55 years later. But that's how I started. So, you know, I ended up, I got reasonably good. I mean, I was okay. I went to the All England Schools Championships a couple of times, competed with Stoke Athletic Club in 1974. I was in the Battle of Britain Trophy, which was a really big event. I got through as a second string thrower alongside Bob Dale, who was our number one shot putter, and he was a big buddy of Geoff Capes. Although in those days, of course, I didn't know Geoff Capes. So that's how I started, probably in sport. That progressed. I was always fascinated by all sports. I've always been a sportsman. I joined the police cadet service when I left school. I sort of fell into that. I didn't really know what else I wanted to do, and it seemed to suit me. And then I started boxing. So that was something everybody did when you joined the police force in those days. I went into boxing, and I spent 2 or 3 years boxing. I had 18 fights. I did okay. I won most of those fights, and I was Staffordshire heavyweight champion in 1975. But after 2 or 3 years of that, although that was the fittest I've ever been in my life, I mean, that was just amazing. The training was awesome. The fitness levels were tremendous. But to be a good boxer, you needed to have that killer instinct. And, you know, if I hurt somebody, I was probably more likely to bend over and help them up and say, "Are you okay, son?" You know, I didn't want to hurt anybody. So, you know, I moved on, and was doing things like the gymnastics display team. And I was still throwing, of course, doing athletics, shot and discus. Then I joined the regular force in 1975. And I became aware of tug of war. Now, I was fascinated by the sport of tug of war. I saw Staffordshire police team competing a few times. And then when I joined, and I ended up at Barton Under Needwood, near Burton-on-Trent, I discovered there was a tug of war team there. And I knew a guy there that was involved, and I got involved in tug of war. So that would be the end of 75, probably. And it was just a natural progression. So, I started to compete. I ended up being in Tug of War for over 45 years. Some of the guys had weights, and so we pulled the weights into the house where I lived at the time. We turned our garage into a gym. And I knew nothing about weightlifting other than the weight training that I'd done at Stoke with some big guys. So I knew a bit about weight training, but didn't know anything at all about the sport of weightlifting. But we realized as we trained together that I could lift an awful lot more than most of the others. So I was sort of a bit interested. I got some magazines about powerlifting, had a look at that. And then somebody introduced me to Johnny Humble in Burton-on-Trent. Now, back in the day, Johnny Humble ran the Eagle Barbell Club in Burton. He was a well-known strongman and weightlifter. I started powerlifting. So that was probably 1978, 79 that I got involved in powerlifting. And then the early 80s, it might have been 82, I think it might have been 83 in reflection, that John Humble, who run the gym, was going to run the Midlands Strongest Man competition. So Strongman had been sort of booming a little bit around that era, and he was going to run the Midlands Strongest Man. So because I was at the club training as a powerlifter and a heavyweight powerlifter, you should get in that, you should get in that. Well, I'd watched the World's Strongest Man on the telly, I was like, yeah, I'll have a go. So I found out what the events were and started to train on them with the intention of competing. What I didn't know was that my schoolboy hero as a shot putter was going to be at the competition. I had no idea. So comes the day of the competition, Geoff Capes walks onto the field and he's the adjudicator for the day. It must have been 93, I think. He'd just won the World's Strongest Man anyway, for the first time. And I went, wow. When I was a kid at 15, he was the best shot putter we'd ever had. I think I had a poster of him throwing, and he was a bit of a hero. So, whoa, that was a surprise to meet him. But what was more interesting was that he came over to me and whispered in my ear. He said, just make sure you win, sunshine. I've got my money on you. And that was just because he was a police officer and I was a police officer. Because that was exactly when he went professional, when he won the world title. He left the police force. He was in Cambridgeshire force, I think, and he went professional. But he said to me, just make sure you win. I went, whoa, no pressure then. It's my first competition. I didn't win, but I came second. I did really well, enjoyed it thoroughly. And after that, Capesy took me under his wing. I started to go over and train with him and the guys that he coached. And he had a company called Life Promotions at the time. And he used to sign people up to do so many events throughout the year, all different kinds of the strongman events and competitions. And then when he learned that I was a shot putter as well, his eyes lit up. He said, you can throw. I said, yeah, I can throw. Have you ever done the Highland Games? Nope, but that's something else I'd love to have a go at. So I started training with his guys and doing the Highland Games. And, sort of it went from there. So that's how I got into Strongman and Highland Games. And I have to say, Geoff Capes was really, really helpful to me. He looked after me. And I had a great time for a few years competing with the guys. Traveled all over.
It's incredible because you meant going back to the Tug of War, because that's not really, I remember when I was a kid, you used to see quite a lot of it about, and it was always a bit like at things like village fetes and things. You'd have like pub teams against each other and things like that. But I never really had I never understood or realized that it was kind of like a serious kind of sport, that it was, I suppose it's a very niche sport, isn't it? But it's not like a mainstream sport. But Tug of War used to be around a lot. I remember growing up in like the 80s and things. I don't know if it still is. Is it still a kind of a big thing? Is it still a thing now?
If most people's exposure to Tug of War would be exactly what you just said, a village fete where people try and get some teams together to pull against each other on a rope, usually the biggest guys they can get a hold of, and it's all good fun. Nothing could be further from the reality of what the sport is. And yeah, maybe you could call it perhaps a niche sport, but the thing is, if you are a puller, if you're involved in that sport, it's your life. It's life consuming. It's everything. And there's such a lot of activity. There's so many teams. People aren't exposed to it. But then you know, it isn't something that's televised very often. Although the World Championships are coming up, I think, this weekend in Nottingham, and I think it's going to be live streamed. I'm pretty sure. And there'll be like countries from all over the world there competing. It's massive. It's a really big sport. But it used to be in the Olympics. I don't know if you knew that. But
no, I didn't know that. No,
it started in the Olympics in 1896, and the last time it was in the Olympics was 1920. So after about 5 Olympics, they had a meeting and they took out something, a huge number of sports. They just took them out and kept certain ones. Tug of War was unfortunately one that was taken out. But this is an interesting fact. We were the Olympic champions that year. And so Great Britain is still undefeated Olympic champions. Although, of course, you know, now it's a sport within the World Games. You've obviously heard of the World Games. Powerlifting's in the World Games. A lot of sports that aren't in the Olympics are in the World Games. And interestingly enough, a month ago, a team representing England from Lincoln just won the World Games title. And they compete as Great Britain in the World Games, not as England, but as Great Britain. And we just won the world title, which was a huge thing in the sport. So yeah, if you go online and look at Tug of War, you'll find all kinds of stuff. The thing is about the sport. I mean, I'll just say, of all the sports I've done, and there are many, Tug of War is probably, I want to say, the hardest. And Geoff Capes did a little bit of Tug of War himself, and he always used to say it was the hardest thing he ever did, because you have to train so hard for it. And, you know, if you get in a pull, which might last 10, 15 minutes, not many people would be able to stay on that rope and stay there. You know, the stamina, the strength training, it's incredible.
This is what I was going to say, because we were obviously I was at the Aboyne Highland Games the day before the gathering. And I remember watching it on, I think it was Geoff Capes, Bill Kazmaier or something, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It used to be in World's Strongest Man. And like you've just said, 15 minutes, because you think Tug of War, a couple of big blokes get against each other. It lasts like, 20 seconds or something. And it's like, no, it's like a game of chess. Because you see them all standing there, and whoever moves, like everyone's rooted in, and whoever moves, I'm using my terms here, by the way. These aren't technical terms.
No.
Everyone's kind of rooted in, and watching each other for a slight bit of movement that they can take advantage of is what it looks like, because they're all kind of really like stuck and sturdy. And then it's like if somebody slightly moves or does something, then that can be taken advantage of. And when you're working as a team, what is it, like 5 people or something? Obviously, that's
8.
That's, I mean, like you've got to see what everyone else is doing. But when it's like one-on-one, I mean, that Kazmaier Capes one went on. I mean, they held it for like 5 minutes or something, just staring at each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the principle is the same as for Tug of War, but that's quite a different thing. And a one-on-one situation would very much often come down to the size of your opponent as much as anything else. But in the sport of Tug of War, where it's 8 aside, there's no room for an individual to shine. It's totally, absolutely, totally a team event. So it's very often likened to rowing. Rowing and Tug of War are very often likened to each other. So the thing is about Tug of War as a sport, you have to be totally in tune with your team. You have to be able to know when to move, when not to move, when to hold, when to dig in. There are so many tactics. People wouldn't realize there are so many tactics. And then your job as a coach is to make sure that your team know exactly what's happening on the other end of that rope. So as a coach, You can see and you can read, watch out, keep it low, keep it tight. They're trying to get into you. They're going to attack you now. You've got to try and hold that off. You've got to try and stay your ground. They may be a repeated attack, but you know that will only last for a certain amount of time before they will start to tire. So if you can hold your ground, if you can dig in and hold it and stay there and weather the storm, there'll be the appropriate moment when you counterattack, and hopefully, you turn them over. And there's just a lot of tactics, and it's a great sport. But the stamina and the strength required, pretty amazing. I mean, I when I started pulling 1975 with our club, Holland Tug of War Club, from Barton Under Needwood, we were a Midlands club that did so. We won some, we lost some. But after about 20 years, I was coaching the team. For about 20 years, things started to change. And we started to get a lot more experience into the side. And we started to improve. Won our first national title with the Tug of War Federation in '89. And went on to bigger things from there. So I was very, very proud in my 30th year as coach that we were selected to go and represent England in the World Championships in Sweden in the 720 kilogram class. That's the heavyweight class. So we won the right to pull on the England rose and the white shirt. Wow, that was something special. And that's another thing a lot of people don't understand. They think tug of war is just about big people. Oh, absolutely not. Your lightweight competition will be an average of men about 70 kilo average. You go through to your middleweights where you might be getting towards 80, 85 kilo average, to your heavyweight where you're 95 to 100 kilo average. And then there is a catchweight category, which is still competed on sometimes, and that's unlimited weight. But more
I think you mentioned to me over that weekend as well that there was like a mixed team event that I don't know if you had it. You were involved in setting it up or having the idea for it, but where you've got a mixed team of men and women, tug of war, against each other, and they were kind of that was an interesting kind of thing as well.
Yeah, well, I've always been a big supporter of women's sport. Although in my long career, in the early days, there was very Victorian attitudes often in certain sports that women shouldn't be doing that. That's a man's sport. Well, I don't believe that. But
they should have a chat with Jan Todd.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it was at the beginning. It was about 1990, I think. In the Tug of War Federation, we had somebody at a meeting had this idea: why don't we start a mixed sport, a mixed pulling? 4 men, 4 women in a team, and it was it sounded like a really great idea, and our team, we championed it, we took it up and got into it, and from that my wife got involved in the sport, so did my buddy's wife who helped me run the team, and a couple of lads' girlfriends, and before you know it, we had a female section pulling within our club. And we became one of the pioneer 4-on-4 teams in this country. Now, it hadn't been accepted by the international organisation. It wasn't part of TWIF. TWIF is the Tug of War International Federation. They did not have a mixed pulling. They had men's weights and they had women's weights. But we had pioneered this 4-on-4 situation. And, in today's modern times, any sport that involves men and women in mixed teams that can work is very, very popular. So anyway, it did become more and more popular, and I championed it for quite a few years, running it sort of unofficially. We had people from countries, teams from about 8 countries come and taking part, and it was put to TWIF 2 or 3 times. It came up for consideration at their meetings to be accepted, and it was always turned down as it was deemed to be not safe enough, which didn't make a lot of sense really, because if the same number of women in each team as the same number of men, the dynamic can't be any different. Anyway, long story short, we suddenly became aware in 2010, beginning of 2010, that TWIF had accepted and were going to include the 4-on-4 for the first time in the World Championships that year in Pretoria in South Africa. And we just couldn't believe it. Was so excited. I mean, oh my gosh, after all these years of pushing it and trying to, pursue it, it took off. I think they had recognized how well it was doing, the teams that were taking part.
If anyone's listening, they want the film rights, by the way, we'll give you Steve's details at the end of the show.
Oh, well,
could be like a cool runnings or something, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I've got to just say quickly, and sometimes you have to stop me because I never stop talking, but I'll just say quickly on that point that at that time, we had some great success with our 4-on-4 team. And at that time, we'd lost a couple of pullers for various reasons, and we just weren't the strongest we could be. But we knew we had to go to that championships. We went and pulled in that competition in South Africa. And we didn't expect to do anything wonderful. There were 16 teams, I think, in it from different countries. And that day was just like, I don't know. We couldn't do anything wrong that day. We won every pull that we went in. We went right through the group, except we lost to a team from Spain called Gastedi. And we were very close with them, but they had the edge on us and they beat us. But we met them again in the final eventually. And yeah, we won the silver medal and the first ever World Open 4+4 mixed pulling. So it was just like it was meant to be for
Excellent.
us. It was great, yeah.
I was going to say, probably again, it just came to me because I don't know if you've ever had any dealings. I really want us to move on to obviously like all the all-round weightlifting stuff as well in a minute.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say a similar kind of sport that was, seems to be becoming a lot more popular now, but that has been around for years and years, but was always just almost like something that people just did. Is arm wrestling, because arm wrestling is really big now, isn't it? It's getting big, and it's got it's becoming a real big spectator sport. Have you? I know you've been involved in and around strength, like you say, for 50+ years. Is arm wrestling something you've ever tried or been involved in, or had anything to do with?
Only a little bit. A friend of mine, David Horn, he was into arm wrestling quite big time, but only a little bit. And the reason I would have been involved a little tiny bit is for the same reason as most other. If you're a big guy and you're a strong man, everybody wants to arm wrestle you. If you've never armed wrestled in your life before, they don't care. You're a big man, you're a strong man, I want to arm wrestle you. And if you know about arm wrestling, it just really isn't all about the biggest and the strongest man. I mean, that makes a difference, but people who are very good at arm wrestling have unusual tendon strength, unusual abilities to be able to sit in that whole arm wrestle whole position. And as an athlete, as a competing strongman, weightlifter or whatever, unless you really went down that route, you probably tried to avoid arm wrestling as much as you can, because sometimes you can't be seen to lose, and you've just got to give it a go, and you've just got to arm wrestle everybody in the room who decides they want to be the next one in the queue. And then if you're not careful, you can't do any training for the next 3 weeks. You just completely destroyed your arm, So I was involved only in a fun way, in that way. I've had arm wrestles where I arm wrestled 2 people at the same time, and it's good fun, but it wasn't it wasn't what you want to be doing every time you go out for a drink and try and socialize. I was asked to help promote a thing that came from Australia. That was in the 80s, I think it was, and it was a machine that they introduced called the Monster, and it was arm wrestling specifically made for arm wrestling. And even though I wasn't an arm wrestler, somehow I got invited to go and help advertise this thing. I've forgotten all about that. That's a long time ago. The Monster. So yeah,
I know. I've got a tip for everyone if you want to make yourself 10% better at arm wrestling, right? Yeah. You do that,
and then that's it. Yeah.
It's the just
For the
just
benefit of the
people
listeners, I've just turned my cap round.
yeah,
back.
just for people who are listening there, and also people who are maybe not who are younger than us. In the 80s, there was a Sylvester Stallone movie called Over the Top,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which was probably mid 80s, I'd imagine, where he's arm wrestling. And did he play? It was something Hawk or Hawk something was his name. Anyway, he used to drive his truck and he used to have like an arm wrestling, like a cable attached to his truck, didn't he? And he used to go around. And when he wanted to switch on, he used to turn his hat round, which is what Pete just demonstrated. Anyway.
I must say that for those who are really involved in arm wrestling, and very much involved in it, yeah, it's a great sport, and I'm sure they have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, because like I say, yeah, it's just something that's it. And again, I'm not sure if we often talk about on this podcast when you're like in an echo chamber and because we talk about something and you start watching it, especially on social media and YouTube now, if you watch a video about arm wrestling, you get loads of videos about arm wrestling popping up, and you kind of may think in your mind, wow, this is really popular, everyone's watching this, but it's just because that's the kind of rabbit hole you've gone down, so same with strongman, same with powerlifting, same with some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about in a bit. But no, I just wanted to touch on that because I kind of thought I know arm wrestling kind of I'd put in a similar, although it's an individual sport, not a team sport. It's a similar kind of thing of tug of war, in that way. So you were doing strongman. You also got involved in Highland Games. You mentioned as well, Steve. Yeah. How did you get on with the Highland Games?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, I loved throwing. I was better at some of the events than others, but I found I really took to tossing the caber, the weight over the high bar. The weight for distance. Well, the weight for distance was a bit like a discus turn. Throwing the hammers. I wasn't a big hammer thrower, but I could do it. So it's a solid shaft hammer that you throw, which is quite different than the actual athletics hammer. But I really enjoyed it all, and I have to say I was very, very lucky to be competing at a time when some of the legends were still around and competing. So, Geoff Capes would go up to Scotland every weekend because, a lot of people don't realise that Highland Games is professional. So you'll get paid for all of the events, whether it's the running, the jumping, the dancing, this, whatever. But even the throwing, everything was professional. So Geoff would go up to Scotland and compete every weekend to earn money. And I mentioned a guy earlier called Bob Dale, who was from Stoke Athletic Club. He was another thrower. And Capes would pick him up and they'd always go up together for the weekend and they'd earn their prize money. So he'd have a good week. So if you wanted Geoff back in those days, in the mid 80s, if you wanted Geoff to come and appear anywhere in the Midlands, he would, as long as he could make more money than if he went up for Scotland throwing, So, but I loved it. I was competing at a time when, one thing I have to mention, one person I have to mention is Bill Anderson. I'm not sure if you would know who Bill Anderson was. He was considered to be possibly the best hammer thrower in the world. Now, when I was competing, he was in his mid to late 50s already and still a tremendous thrower. And it was usually came down to it. Him and Geoff Capes that would win. But Bill Anderson by then had been competing for over 30 years and he was a tremendous thrower. And there were articles at the time that talked about, was he better than Donald Dinnie? And Donald Dinnie, as you know, was the first superstar of all world sport. And he was world Highland Games champion and very, very proficient in his day in the 1860s, 70s, whatever. So, people compared Bill Anderson to him. Bill Anderson was a legend, and it was my very great pleasure to have thrown alongside him, way behind him in his wake. But just a great experience. I met a lot of other really superb international competitors as well. Another of my favourites was Hamish Davidson. Hamish was just a grand character. He was a bit shorter in stature than a lot of the other strongmen and Highland Games throwers, but my gosh, he was a strong guy and a funny guy too. I had such a lot of fun with Hamish Davidson. So he was, in the world's strongest man a few times, and he was just a great competitor. So I was very lucky. I threw and competed alongside some great people.
Yeah. So when did you become involved in the IAWA, or what for people who listen, because we kind of have we cover everything on this podcast, so we're not specifically a kind of a strength or a strongman or a powerlifting. We cover walking, cycling, ultra endurance, running, everything. So what is the IAWA, and how did you get kind of involved in that?
Well, I told you that I'd started powerlifting, then I started doing strongman. And then after I'd done that for a few years, I really was concentrating on trying to get into at the time, the British drug-free powerlifting team. And so I really concentrated hard on that for a few years. And eventually, you had to win the British Championships to do it. And eventually I did. And I was lucky to travel around the world for 5 years competing at the World Championships. But then I injured my knee again, and that was pretty bad, so I couldn't squat, certainly not to the level that I would have needed to continue to do. So I discovered all-round weightlifting. Now, when I discovered all-round weightlifting, I thought, wow, I didn't know about this organization. I mean, you learn as you go, sort of thing. So then I discovered that the International All-Round Weightlifters Association, as it is today, at the time, I think it was called the British Amateur Weightlifters Guild at the time in the UK. And what it is, it encompasses the history of the iron game, the whole history of the sport. So a lot of people know what powerlifting is because there's so many powerlifting organizations today, and that's squat, bench and deadlift, 3 lifts. The Olympics set, which is done at the Olympic Games, which used to be the press, the snatch and the clean and jerk, which today is just the snatch and the clean and jerk. So people are in those sports very proficient at what they do and specialize on those. But the all-round organization has something like 150 different lifts that we cover and cater for, and each and every one of those has record lists in them, and they're all lifts that are designed to test different areas of strength and ability of the body, from single arm lifts to there's like 10 variations on a deadlift as well. There's all different kinds of lifts, and many of them go back to the early days of the competing strongmen in the Bavarian beer gardens, where the strongman started. Strongman and weightlifting. That's where it sort of started, And lots and lots of these old lifts were practiced and performed by many legends from the past. And the sport of all-round weightlifting keeps all of those alive. So quite funny that, to me, always quite funny, some people call them the odd lifts. There was a period of time in the 70s, I think, when if anybody did any of those old-time lifts, they were called the odd lifts. And there's nothing odd about them. They are just part and parcel of the strength sport of weightlifting. And everything that's that you see today, all-round weightlifting. What am I trying to say? All-round weightlifting is a competition. Can be 5 or 7. Can be sometimes just 3, but sometimes 5 or 7 lifts, and they're all designed to test different areas of strength. So it's a bit like a strongman competition or a decathlete in athletics. So you're not trying to always be the best in everything, but you try and be as close to the top as you can in all the events to try and come out as the overall winner. That's it.
I absolutely love it because we had, like I say, we had Brooks Cubic on, who wrote Dinosaur Training.
Yeah.
We also had Dave Whitley on, who is the gentleman who introduced me to we're holding up the book that we discussed before, the Mighty Atom, the spiritual journey of Joseph L. Greenstein, which we might talk about. And I have to thank regular listener to the show and friend Graham Harris, who actually bought me that copy. But like we said, it's very hard to come by now. And then I also mentioned I've just got this George Hackenschmidt book. So all these kind of, I love that idea of these strong men that would have been lifting in, well, the late 1800s, the early 1900s,
Yes.
and in a time before kind of steroids and anabolics and things like that. They obviously looked very different, but they were generally a lot smaller than obviously the huge guys now.
Yeah.
But they were immensely strong, weren't they? So
They were pioneers in their day, and some of the things that they achieved are really, really still terribly powerful and important today. But so all-round weightlifting really looks across the expanse of the whole area of any kind of early weightlifting, right through to present day. So it's the history. It is the history of the Iron Game, really.
And what's your role within that organisation now? Because I know you're heavily involved in the UK, branch of that.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your kind of role within that?
I was the international president for 12 years, which I was then followed by Al Myers from Kansas, US. He did 12 years. I'd followed on from Howard Prechtel, who was an ex-Marine from Ohio. He did the first 12 years, and now currently my friend Paul Barrett down in Eastbourne is our current international president. So I've served on the international committee for many, many years now. I'm currently the UK president, and I have a few roles. Other than that, I organise our fixture list for the year, and I help to organise the international events. I'm sort of like a coordinator, if you, for want of a better word. So Iowa, that exists today, it followed on from what was the British All-Round Weightlifters Guild. We merged with an American group in 1986/87, and then Australian group, and that sort of formed the IAWA, the International All-Round Weightlifters Association. And from the first World Championships in 1988, I think it was, in Leicester, England, there's been World Championships every single year ever since. And except COVID year, we didn't hold it in COVID year, of course. Other than that, excuse me, Alexa's decided to speak to me. Alexa, off. I have no idea. I have no idea what I said there to set her off. But so there's a World Championships held every year, and this year we're excited. It's in Belfast. And a friend of mine, Stevie Shanks, Jack Shanks' son, Stevie. You met Stevie, of course.
Yeah, Stevie has been on the podcast twice before as well. Yeah, we know Stevie well. Yeah, I'm
the assistant director of that competition with Stevie, and we're really excited about that. That will be on the 4th and 5th of October this year. So that's what Iowa is. The UK division, we are Iowa UK, and we have the domestic competition every month from January through to September. So every month there is a competition, from the single arm competition to the powerlifting competition to the British all-round competition, the strength, the grip competition. Mark Adock runs the grip championships. So we have a whole host of different competitions that lifters can take part in if they want through the first 9 months. And then we go into the international season, which is where we're headed right now. And that's a lot of work for me because I help to organise and coordinate all of the events, no matter which country they're in. I work with the promoters. So we've got, Stevie's got the World Championships in Belfast, and then the International World Record Breakers Tournament called the Gold Cup. That happens to be in this country, so it's not too bad for us. We don't have a lot of travelling to do this year. Sometimes we have to go, to America and Australia, but this year we've got Belfast and Derby in England. I'm the promoter of the Gold Cup World Record Breakers event in Derby, which will be in November, beginning of November.
Fantastic.
And then we finish off with the Old-Time Strongman World Championships in December. So where the lifts will be from a set of, I think there's 19 lifts within our rule book, which are specifically the Old-Time Strongman lifts. And we have a tournament to finish the year on that. So it's very exciting and great fun.
Sounds great. Sounds great, doesn't it, Pete? We'll have to
Yeah.
try and go along and watch, because I think actually there's one quite close to me, isn't there? The Bionic branch in Billericay in Essex. Glenn Branch there is involved, isn't he?
Yeah, Glenn Branch. Glenn, we held our British Powerlifting Championships at Glenn's Club this year, and I think last year as well. They're very well set up there for the powerlifting, and they've got quite a few lifters that are involved in that too. So we move our competitions, move around. So like Mark is up in the north, Mark's up in Preston, Mark Haydock. So he has held the grip competition for a few years now. We go across to Grimsby near Hull, where Chris Bass there at the Haven Gym. We usually have the Midland Open Championships up there. Paul Brett down in Eastbourne at Metamorphic Club. He'll hold a couple of competitions there. Next week, 2 weeks today, 2 weeks Saturday, we're going to Tiverton in Devon, where there's a club there where we're going to have the British Disability Championships, followed by the West Country Open. So, and then I run some in the Midlands. So yeah, we move around the country wherever we've got promoters that will run events. Yeah, so
I think you coach Chloe Brennan, don't you? Who we've had on the podcast as well, and she's at my gym, where we said this weekend with us. How long have you? Because it was quite funny, the story you said about how Chloe first turned up at a gym with her boyfriend, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, Chloe won't mind me saying, because it's a true story and it's quite funny. I was, for 40 years, I ran the Burton Powerhouse Gym, or Weightlifting Academy, all-round Weightlifting Academy in Burton-on-Trent. I had 3 or 4 different locations, but I closed it down and retired in 2017, because I was 60, and I figured I've been doing this for 40 years. And I was just like, I'm not tired of it, but you know, how long am I going to carry on doing this for? It was such a lot of work. I loved every bit of it, but it was such a lot of work. And I thought, I'm going to close the gym down. I'm fed up of chasing sponsorship, collecting in your fees. I loved the coaching part of it, but I had so many lifters that my one-to-one coaching was starting to take up so much of my time. And I thought I should be taking it a bit easier now. Also, my wife had got cancer and my parents were ill, and it's like, oh gosh, you know, I have so many demands on my time. I need to prioritize and do what's right. So I closed the gym. I figured I've done it for such a long time. Now, a few years before I closed the gym, about 3 or 4 years before that, I had a young fellow lifting with us, Matt Jones. What a great guy young Matt was. You know, he came to me when he was 15, strong as anything. And you know, but completely novice, and so the Matt came and started training with us, and as he continued, one day in walks Chloe. I'm Matt's girlfriend, and I've come training because Matt said I've got to. I went, oh, okay. Oh, well, nice to see you. She said, I won't be able to do very much because I'm not very strong. I hurt my back. I think she said trampoline. She used to be a top class trampolinist, I think. So it's something along the lines of, you know, I hurt my back, so I won't be very strong. I won't be able to do a lot. Well, we soon realized, you know, after a short while, that was totally not where Chloe was at. But obviously, she had to go on her own journey and learn that. And of course, there's no one better than Chloe today with the experiences she's now got. She's running all sorts of wonderful classes and help groups. She really is a champion for young women in sport, and actually for anybody. I love her to death. So I coached her from when she first started, and she's still part of our group today. She still competes for us with Matt, along with Matt. The story there is that I thought I'd finished coaching in 2017 when I closed the gym. But then some of the guys said, would you still coach us, you know, occasionally? And I thought, oh, well, you know what? It's nice they asked me. And so I sort of did. We carried on going a bit tongue in cheek. We just sort of carried on going a while. And then before I knew it, yeah, the Powerhouse Gym was as strong as ever it was. although we only meet once a week. We call it our squad session, and I use it because I don't have a gym now. I use a couple of different places, which are very helpful to us. One is the Rhinos Strongman training gym near Tamworth, and then the other one is one of my lifters is Josh Davison, tremendous lifter Josh Davison, who works full time at Derby Uni. He lectures there, so we sometimes have accessibility to Derby. So we tend to train between Derby and Tamworth, and that's what we do. And so once a week I coach the guys, and it's so funny. I mean, not funny, but last year, so bear in mind I closed the gym in 2017. Last year, for 2024, our club won the National League, the National Postal League, which is a big event that goes throughout the year, 6 legs of 4 lifts, so every other month. And we won the National League. And really, we're sort of like we're not nomadic, you know what I mean? But I don't have my club anymore. But so we still exist, and I'm just so grateful. I've got we got a tremendous team because I'm very, very good lifters, and it still gives me great enjoyment. And to be fair, since my wife Karen had to leave me 2 years ago, bless her, I'm probably really grateful that I have it in my life to help me keep busy and absorb my time. I always think about her every day, of course, but it's really helpful to me to have things going on and to keep me trying to move forward. Yeah.
Because I think you said when you obviously were with your wife for a long time, weren't you? And you mentioned that she got involved. Was it you mentioned earlier she got involved in Tug of War, wasn't it, as well, when you back in the day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Karen and I were together 50 years. We were kids when we met. She was 15 and a half. I was just 17. That's when we met, and we were together, and we were always together. And she passed away 2 years ago. One thing that's an interesting and a very sweet story is we had a record session last weekend up at Mark Haydock's in Preston, and Chloe did a 2-person deadlift with Mark's daughter, Emily, who was only 12. She's a strong kid too. And they did a great lift. I think they did 227.5 kilos on the 2.
I was going to say, I think it was it a 500 pounds. I think
it was 500.
Yeah, because I saw it on Instagram. Yeah.
Well, that's what it was. And bear in mind, Emily's only 12. It was tremendous what they did. But Chloe came to me afterwards, and she said that was really sweet to me because the first 2-woman deadlift she did to set a record was with my wife Karen when Chloe herself was a junior, and she said, we passed the baton on. And I thought, wow. And I'd only posted a photograph of Chloe and Karen doing the 2-woman deadlift. I'd only posted it a day or two earlier, just because it came up on my timeline. And I said, well, I never thought of that. So she said, yeah, I started out, and as a junior, I set a record, an Iowa record with Karen. And she said, now I've done another one, but this time, I'm the senior lifter and Emily was the junior. And I said, wow, I never thought of that. So that was a nice thing.
I was about to say, we've gone full circle here because you were naming names of people from the 70s and 80s who took you to their wing at the time. And now that's you. You're them now, aren't you? You're like the guy who's done it for so long that people, like you've said, you close your club and people are like, well, what are we going to do now? We need you, sort of thing. And then but you've got that all at different levels. So like when you got taken under the wing of like, I don't know, Geoff Capes and the other guys, I can't remember their names, but they wouldn't have been the age you are now. They would have been in their like late 30s or whatever, 40s maybe. So they would have been like the Chloe type thing now. So you've got like this whole I don't even know what you call it. It's like a longevity thing, but this whole kind of generations, like 3 or 4 generations of people who've been in this, who are then gonna. You've now got that 12-year-old girl who's going to become Chloe at some point. Chloe will become you, and
absolutely,
I love it.
It's an ongoing thing, and it's wonderful to be, I suppose, a part of it. to me, I sometimes think, crikey, where the heck has the time gone? I'm still that young kid who was trying to learn. I was eager to learn, and I've gone on and hopefully learned some stuff. And I've spent 40 years at least trying to pass that on, probably 50 years trying to pass some of that on. So, when I had my gym, I coached over 300 lifters in that 40-year period. Over 300 lifters. That's a lot of people. And I just am so glad and so proud that I was able to. And it's really nice for me now when people come to me years later on and say, oh, yeah, I started with you and you did this with me and I did that. And, they appreciated the time that we had together. So in that sense, I've always loved coaching. Helping people is probably how I would put it. It's great to be a competitor. And I had some success in a lot of sports, and I've enjoyed every single moment of that, of course. But I've had every bit as much success in seeing other people succeed and achieve that I've helped. Gosh, almost making me feel slightly tearful. That's weird. But it's such a big emotion inside me. I've always loved helping people and seeing other people achieve. And one example I can give you quite quickly. People, well, in when you coach people, you will find probably it's the same in all sports. You'll get people who come and they're talented, they're very good, but they don't know they're very good and they don't have enough confidence. So they will say to you, oh, I don't know if I can compete yet. Why? Oh, I don't know if I'm good enough. I said, well, there is never such a time as when you're good enough. Every journey starts with that first step. And once you start, if you like it and if it's for you, you'll just take it all on board and you'll be away. So people are often held back by that. I don't know if I'm good enough. There is no such a thing. You have to try and think of it in a different way. But people can start in sport when they've had no previous experience and still have a great career and still excel. My own wife, Karen, she didn't compete. She wasn't a sportswoman. She played hockey at school. That was it. We had our two boys. But by the time my two sons got to be 11 and 12, they both went on to be very, very good weightlifters and strongmen themselves and world champions of juniors and all kinds of stuff. But when they started training with me, they would be 11 and 12. Dad, can we come training? Dad, can I come training? Yeah, whatever. So they started from a very early age. Well, Karen used to be with us. We'd be all together. And one day she said, well, I might as well join you, mightn't I? To stand here watching. And of course, it was also at that time when we were trying to get women involved in our 4-4 team to take part in the mixed pulling competitions. And so that's how Karen started. So she'd have been in her early 30s. And she went on to be a terrific athlete. She was such a strong girl. She was a farmer's daughter. Wow, what a strong grip Karen had. And just very quiet, unassuming person, the kind of person you wouldn't expect to become so avidly involved in sport. But she loved it. And she won many titles in weightlifting and tug of war. She competed in world championships. She competed everywhere. She's the only person in tug of war I know who competed for several countries. She competed. One year she was competing in a team from Southern Ireland. One year she was in a team from Israel. And many championships we went to. She ended up competing with Tiny Langveld, who used to run a team from Holland, because Karen was good competitor. And if we didn't have a full ladies' side, they'd come and say, do you think Karen would pull with us in this? Yeah. So bless her, she pulled all over the place. But she was a great athlete, and she would have still been going today, I suppose, although no, she'd be retiring now, I suppose. But if it wasn't for cancer, so that stopped her, But yeah, so it's never too late to start. There's so much fun, that involvement. And of course, well, I could talk forever about it, but there's some benefits of all-round weightlifting. It's a very unusual sport in a way. Yes, you compete in your weight categories against people of your same sex in your weight groups and body weight classes, but we also allocate percentage. So you get a percentage allowance, 33% for being female. You get a percentage allowance for your age. So at the age of 40, you start with 1%. By the time you get to 66, that goes to 2%. So, if you're an older competitor, but you're good, you can pick up a really healthy percentage, which goes into the equation. So what the idea is, everybody can compete on a level playing field. So if your overall championship, the winner of the best overall lifter on the day could be a female. And that has happened a couple of times. Chloe Brennan was one of them. She was, forgive me if I say it wrong, I'm pretty sure she was the overall best lifter. She was at the World Championships last year. Yeah, she was. So that has happened once or twice, but it's a great leveler. So, it's for anybody. I knew a guy, he's dead now. He got killed in a motorcycle accident, but he was a world masters champion, 70 plus age category, had one of the best one-hand deadlifts I've ever seen in my life. He was about 8 foot tall, and he was an oil tycoon from Colorado. Rex Monaghan, and that man started life as a roughneck with nothing, ended up owning several oil companies and was a very, very wealthy man. But at 70, he decided to start he saw some weightlifting somewhere and decided to have a go. And so at 70, he started traveling around and entering competitions. And he was a strong guy, at 70 years of age. So I think he only had just under 10 years competing before he was killed on a Harley Davidson motorcycle. Because wherever Rex went, and he came over to my championships in the 90s in Burton Under one year, he always wanted to hire a Harley. So wherever we were, we had to be able to take him somewhere where he could hire a Harley so he could just go off riding around on his Harley. And ironically, he died in Colorado where he lives, in the town where he lives, in a motorcycle accident. God bless him. But unusual character. I mean, I'm just dying to tell you. I've got time to tell you a small story about
Yeah,
it.
tell us a small story.
Well, I'll tell you this small story. So, where I live in Barton, it's a village. It's the largest village in East Staffordshire, but it's 5,000 population. So I'm running a championships in Burton on Trent, just up the road. So the town of Burton's quite a big town. That was a beer town. That was Bass Brewery town. Whatever. So I'm running the championships there. I think it was 94. I've got about 8 or 10 American lifters over here. But one of the people who came over was Rex Monaghan. Now, I can't remember the name of the town where he lives, but there's a statue of him in the middle of that town because he was such a great benefactor to the town. He gave so much money away to support and help people. Anyway, he was a lovely guy. So I go and collect Rex from the airport, and I bring him to the travel lodge on the A38. And he doesn't know where he is. He's never been here before in his life. Now, the travel lodge on the A38, there's no footpath. There's nowhere to go from there. It's like an industrial corridor there. I said, Rex, this is about 3 o'clock. Rex, you rest up. I'm going to come and pick you up at 6 to bring you back to my home for dinner. He went, oh, how nice. I said, no problem. I'll see you in a while. This was the days before mobile phones, of course. So off I go. And then I pop back down there to pick him up at 6 o'clock. So I go and knocked his door. No answer. No answer again. So I went back to the desk and I said, I've come to collect my friend who's visiting over here from America. There is no answer at the door. I said, I can't understand it because there's nowhere else that I know that he could be. So they came with the key and opened up the room. He's not there. Wow. This guy is a multimillionaire and I'm looking after him. And we're at Barton Under Needwood, standing on the A38, which is a really, really busy, fast road. And I don't know where he is. I have no clue what to do. Where could he be? I mean, he was in his 70s, but where the heck could Rex Monaghan be? And just as I'm starting to panic and I think I was asking at the desk, can I just call to tell Karen, my wife, that I can't find him and, what am I going to do? And I heard this. He was always whistling. And as I look up, I had forgotten that behind the travel lodge, there's a footpath down the side of the canal. And if you just follow it down 100 yards or so, there's a little old pub. So he's obviously wandered through and he's gone down to the pub. So thankfully, I found him. I was almost in tears. Rex, I found you. You're back. And he came and he was so jovial and so happy. Oh, yes, yes, yes. I said, I wondered what the heck happened to you. He goes, well, I went for a walk down the footpath. Yeah. And apparently he went into the pub. Now, this is the Vine Inn in Barton Under Needwood. In those days, it was just a drinking working man's pub. So guys would go in there from work, have a few beers before they go home, that kind of thing, Well, Rex has wandered in his raincoat, this, almost 7 feet tall American dude with a flat cap on. And he'd gone in there and say, I say, my fine fellows, would you have such a thing as a cup of coffee? I look at him gone out like, who the heck are you? We don't sell coffee in here, sorry. We just like beer and, spirits. Oh, he said, would you have a sweet sherry? And he goes, a sweet sherry? Certainly we could get you a sherry. So they pour him a sherry and looking at him very confused, not really understanding. He tells them he's come over for a weightlifting competition. They're looking at this guy, well, you're no spring chicken, you're an old dude, you're an unusual looking character, you're here for a weightlifting competition? And yeah, oh yes, absolutely, blah, blah, blah. So they're all a bit confused. And then one of them in the pub says, hang on, do you know Steve Gardner? And he goes, yes, Steve's my friend. He's running the competition. And they went, oh, then it all clicked into place. They obviously all understood then, oh, this guy is kosher. He's over here, something to do with Steve. Oh, they were all buying him sweet sherries then. So he sat there surrounded by all these people sending him over sweet sherries. He's knocking them back and lower. So he's come home singing to himself, oh, la, la, along the footpath. Wow, it was just a funny story. The people who told me that were in the pub said you had to be there to see the atmosphere and understand how it went. All these people just so confused. Who is this alien that just walked into our world? And then they realised who he was, and he was no threat, and he was just good fun. So
there he is.
I was just really. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my!
Sterling. He was in Sterling,
Colorado.
That's his. This is his. This is the funeral home from his January the 19th, 2009.
That's it.
This is the funeral home thing, and it's got a whole story about him, so you can just Google him.
He's a massive character. And I mean, he's just, you do meet in the world of sport, you meet all kinds of people. He's somebody who I will never forget. He was such an unusual character, such a nice man. So in those days, if you were running a competition and Rex was taking part, he would send you $500. I mean, the entry fee might be $50. He would just send you a check for $500 because he wanted to support the event. He was very giving. I think he gave to the community where he lived. And he sat and had dinner with Karen and I and our two boys. And he said, oh, this is so very nice. Well, but just having Rex dinner. He says, yes, but I don't have dinner. I don't have a family anymore, really. He said, my wife, she was an author. My wife's always away. And if she's home, she eats alone in her study. He said, I just eat alone, So he said, this is really very neat to have dinner with a family. So, yeah.
Oh, dear.
But he was a great character. Yeah, great character.
Yeah, this has been absolutely lovely talking to you. And we'll definitely have to get you on again to talk more about, George Hackenschmidt, the Mighty Atom, all of this kind of history stuff, because I think it's absolutely fantastic. And
I was going to say, because basically James got all his books out for nothing.
Well, no, actually, that only got delivered yesterday, because that was the delivered with Dan John's new one, and I'm sitting in my sort of office with all my bookshelves right next to me anyway. So, but no, definitely, we'll definitely speak to you again, Steve. Now, do you? And also, I love you. You do put lots of. I mean, it'll be easy for me to find a nice picture to use for the thumbnail for this, because you share so many great old sort of photos of yourself and other people training, black and white pictures from back in the day and things. So it's great.
That's because I'm very old. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it's great. So, I mean, if people want to kind of follow you on social media and stuff, I mean, I know you're pretty good on Instagram, actually, aren't you? Posting things on there.
If I'm totally honest, I don't think I'm very good. I have an Instagram presence. I honestly don't really know fully how it works. So I do post some pictures on there. So I'm on Instagram and I do try and put up some of my old pictures. I'd probably do a bit more on Facebook. You know, I put stuff up on Facebook, but I also run the Facebook group for the IAWA. Anybody wants to check it out, the IAWA website, IAWA UK website, everything you want to know about the sport is on there. And I do the Iowa UK Facebook group, so I'm putting stuff on there all the time. There is an IAWA Instagram page too. That's done by Gary L. So other than that, I'm in the modern age, but I'm not a master of anything really. But I'm here. I have a presence.
Yeah, so it's Steve Gardner UK on Instagram, and then on Facebook just search for Steve Gardner. And like I say, I went on the website earlier, the IAWA.UK on there, which is great. So the International All Round Weightlifting Association. But yeah, we will definitely speak again, and it was really lovely. And thank you for sharing your time with us today, Steve. Yeah,
it's been my pleasure. And look forward to speaking to you again. In the meantime, just stay happy and stay strong. That's it.
Stay strong, stay happy, stay strong. Love it. Yeah. Okay. So thank you everybody for listening, for watching. Please do share, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so, especially Apple Podcasts. We will be back next week for episode 264. We're just sorting out guests at the moment for next week, so we will be back then. Thank you so much, Steve.
You're welcome.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mr. Peter Lant.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.